Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, the Jewish state is still reeling from the stunning betrayal at the United Nations by the Obama administration. Rather than use its veto power to protect Israel, the American envoy abstained from a Security Council vote ensuring the passage of a resolution demanding an immediate end to Israeli Jewish communities in Judea, Samaria, and even parts of Jerusalem. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu remarked that friends don't take friends to the Security Council. He went on to say that even though the two governments do not see eye to eye regarding Israel's building policy, Washington and Jerusalem have always had an understanding that the UN is not the arena to resolve their differences. The White House reversal of the U.S. policy is widely seen as a parting shot against the Jewish state by President Barack Obama. It was delivered in defiance of strong opposition from President-elect Donald Trump, as well as U.S. lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee is describing the UN vote as incredibly dangerous because it's aimed at denying the Jewish people the right to secure borders on land given to them by God. Jerusalem openly accused Obama and his Secretary of State John Kerry of secretly conspiring with the Palestinians to advance the anti-Israel measure, which it believes will provide a tailwind for further boycotts and terror.
You know, Yochanan, that this entire incident is being described as one of the most intense bouts of diplomatic wrangling at the UN ever. After receiving a request from Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, President-elect Donald Trump called Security Council member Egypt, which initially sponsored the bill on behalf of the Palestinians. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi then agreed to table the measure in an apparent move to avoid alienating the incoming Trump administration. The bill passed nevertheless after it was later introduced by 4 other nations. Although senior Israeli diplomats are deeply unhappy that the measure was approved because of the U.S. abstention, they're expressing confidence that the Jewish state will be able to count on future diplomatic protection from the Trump White House, in sharp contrast from its predecessor.
In other news, an Arab-Israeli lawmaker has been indicted on charges of conspiracy, fraud, and breach of trust after being videotaped smuggling illegal contraband to dangerous Palestinian security prisoners. The suspect is 60-year-old Bassel Gattas, a member of the radical Balad party. He initially denied the charges, but the Arab Knesset member was forced to change his tune after being confronted by the evidence in which he was seen handing 4 envelopes hidden in his coat to a prisoner. Inside were 12 mobile phones, 16 SIM cards, 2 chargers, and an earphone. Gattas now admits he delivered the stash, but claims he was unaware of the contents. The brother of a terrorist convicted of murdering an Israeli soldier has also been arrested for giving the Arab MK the package. Members of the Balad faction are fiery supporters of the Palestinian cause and are frequently accused of inciting violence and disloyalty to the state.
On Christmas Day, Israeli police threw several Palestinian men out of the Jerusalem Living Bread Church that they had seized by force. Pastor Karen Dunham says that she and her staff have endured a campaign of violence and intimidation, including beatings, for more than 2.5 years because the Muslim men dispute her lease to the property. Last month, they broke in, changed the locks, and stole valuables. And what they didn't want, they set on fire. The intruders also painted over the cross at the entrance of the house of worship with the Islamists saying, "Allah is great." Previously, the group threatened to cut off the heads of 2 Jewish orphans with Down syndrome who were living in the building. Dunham is thanking Police Superintendent Niso Gueta for what she says was a Christmas miracle to see her church again. She told local media that he vowed to do everything in his power to change the cesspool of violence and corruption in the neighborhood, which is primarily populated by Arabs. The property issue is now set to be resolved by the courts.
In other legal matters, Israeli cabinet ministers just approved a new bill that will now be passed on to the full Knesset for consideration into becoming law. The proposed legislation would legally compel Facebook and Google to remove specific posts which the Israeli Police Cybercrime Unit says advocates violence. Public Security Minister Gilad Erdan and Justice Minister Ayelet Shaked sponsored what is known as the Facebook bill. They dispute claims from the social media giant that it's capable of monitoring content on its own. Erdan points out that the company only took down 23 out of the 74 posts, which Israel found filled with dangerous Palestinian incitement. The security minister also objects to Facebook's lengthy removal process, saying that any delay in taking down inflammatory posts can be potentially deadly.
Meanwhile, that's exactly what the Fatah movement of Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has been doing. For 2 consecutive days this month, the party celebrated its most successful deadly attacks against Israel on its Facebook page. According to the Palestinian Media Watch monitoring group, the first post lauded the 10 most outstanding operations in the group's 52-year history, which killed 100 Jewish civilians, including 22 children, and 16 Israeli soldiers. The other post praised attacks during the Second Intifada between the years 2000 to 2005, when over 1,000 Israelis were murdered in the wave of Arab terrorism. Fatah also put up a so-called map of Palestine, which encompassed the entire Jewish state. The faction's logo of a grenade and guns was also prominently displayed, leaving no doubt about its aspirations concerning the Jewish state.
Israel is keeping a watchful eye on its northern border with Syria as bloodshed in the civil war continues to escalate. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu inspected IDF troops stationed in the Golan Heights overlooking the frontier. Despite Jerusalem's official policy of neutrality in the conflict, more than 2,600 injured Syrians have received medical care after making their way to the Jewish state for help.
A shocking video is going viral of Islamist parents in Syria saying goodbye to their 7- and 9-year-old daughters before sending them off to commit suicide bombings. The father is a fighter in the radical Islamist al-Nusra Front who was filmed telling the girls to kill the infidels for Aleppo and that Allah would be with them. On December 16th, the younger child reportedly entered a police station asking to use a restroom, and just moments later, her explosives vest was detonated remotely. She and 3 police officers were killed and scores of others were wounded. The 9-year-old returned home twice after failing to find enough Syrian soldiers to target, but each time her father sent her out again. Her fate is unknown. According to a Human Rights Watch report, the abuse of children is emerging as a major tactic being used by Muslim extremists.
Turning now to another archaeological discovery, and this one actually answers an historical riddle. A stone slab found off Israel's coast finally reveals the name of the ruler who suppressed a major Jewish revolt against the Romans. The massive artifact weighs about 1,300 pounds and dates back to the 2nd century of the Common Era. The 7 lines of ancient Greek inscription on the slab identify the Roman prefect in charge as Gargilius Antiquus, and the area of the conflict is confirmed as Judea. Tensions that remained high after the Romans destroyed the Second Temple in the year 70 erupted again in 132 CE. A Jewish leader named Shimon Bar Kokhba led a bloody 4-year rebellion against the empire, which ultimately failed and saw many Jews sold into slavery and scattered into exile. The inscription on the tablet may be one of the very last mentions of Judea outside the Bible until modern times. The Romans did their best to sever the connection between the Holy Land and the Jewish people by renaming the territory Palestina after the Philistines, which eventually evolved into the word Palestine. But as history shows us, no attempts throughout the ages can erase the bond that the Jewish people have to their biblical homeland.
One of the latest archaeological discoveries in Jerusalem has special significance because it turned up right before this year's celebration of Hanukkah. A bronze penny was unearthed near the Tower of David by Jerusalem's Old City, bearing the dreaded likeness of the ancient Greek tyrant Antiochus IV Epiphanes. This is the same evil monarch who tried to Hellenize the Jews and suppress their religious observances during his reign between 172 and 168 years before the Common Era. Jewish rebels, led by Judah Maccabee and his clansmen, succeeded in wresting control of Judea from the powerful Greeks to restore the freedom of worship and the formation of a new Jewish kingdom that ruled for the next century. The lighting of the menorah during Hanukkah symbolizes that Jewish victory and the rededication of the Holy Temple.
Israel, the light unto the nations, today faces attack from more than just rockets and terrorism. Calls to boycott, sanction, and divest from Israel, known as BDS, are a form of economic warfare that you can help to prevent. The Israel Allies Foundation has launched a public service campaign called Defeat BDS, offering educational tools and other resources that you can use to stand with Israel and help make a difference. Just visit the easy-to-use website at www.defeatbds.org.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host Josh Reinstein, and we're here on a beautiful sunny day on our rooftop studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Navanel Glick. He's the Chief Operations Officer for IsRaid. Navanel, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Navanel, tell our viewers a little bit about what is IsRaid.
So IsRaid is Israel's leading non-profit, non-governmental humanitarian aid organization.
You know, some people don't know this about Israel. We get a lot of bad press, but whenever there's a natural disaster, we're first on the ground to help out. Why?
I think in Israel, really, it's very important for us to take everything that we've learned as a young country and share it with the world to show really what we can do.
You know, people see us as a light onto the nations through our technology, but we're also a light onto nations in the way we treat other people. We also go to places where we don't necessarily have good relations government to government, but we care about the people. Why and how does IsRaid select the countries it goes to help out in?
So we select countries based on need, places like Iraq where we get to, and they don't exactly love us there, but we go because of how important it is to help, and we feel that we have the skills, that we've learned a lot of the community needs they have, that we have a lot of trauma knowledge here, and we want to share that as best as we can.
Tell us a little bit about what is your global operation. How many countries are you operating in? What are some of the main areas of operations?
So today we work in 19 countries around the world. We're working everywhere from the refugee crisis, starting from Iraq all the way to Germany. We're working in the Ebola-affected countries in Western Africa, East Africa and the South Sudanese refugee crisis, Haiti, Japan, Philippines, all over the world.
You know, do you go into countries where not necessarily they'd be happy to see Israelis, and you see that kind of turn around when they see the work you're doing?
I think that first and foremost, people on the ground really, they like us and they look up to us more than what people notice from the news and so forth. But definitely, of course, we arrive and people say, wow, really, this is what you bring? And we look people, eye to eye, and it makes a big difference.
So what are you actually bringing to the table? Is it volunteers, technology, know-how?
It's a combination of both technology and know-how of many skill sets. We're talking about, as I mentioned, trauma care, gender-based violence responses. We're talking about water technology. We're talking about medical support, a wide number.
You know, we get a lot of media attacks. We don't think we get a fair shake in the international media at all. Why isn't this story being told?
We're doing our best, and we more and more feel that we just do the work, and we hope that people will get to it. And we see a change happening slowly but surely because it's a story that you can't ignore.
Look, IsRaid is a completely apolitical organization. There is no politics involved. You're just there to help people. But do you think eventually this will have some sort of political effect?
I think that what we want to do, and our message is really, we want to share what the Israeli society and the Israeli technology can bring to the world, and make it so that the word Israel is not synonymous just with politics, but also with excellence and professional excellence. And that, of course, has an effect. It's people to people.
Look, I mentioned this earlier in the interview that we are a light onto the nations. How do you see this in the context of the Bible? Is this really the fulfillment of prophecy?
I think that for us as a people, with the history that we've had, with the places that we've been, and it's important to take all of that and to see how we can give back to the world and really fulfill, I think, our mission as individuals.
Now, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
For people watching around the world, I think it would be very important to notice just how much power we have every day today, maybe on social media, maybe in the people we talk to, the dollars we give here or there, and the people that we really promote. We can make a huge difference in the world. And for us as a small organization, every dollar makes a big difference. We go all over the world. We spend over 95% of all the funds we get, and we really would appreciate any form of support so that people can see what Israel can do when we arrive on the ground with just a little bit of support.
Navanel, thank you for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, wishing you a very happy new year. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom and welcome to the Return to Zion with Karen Hayesod. I'm Eliezer Moody Sandberg, World Chairman of Karen Hayesod United Israel Appeal, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Today, you will witness the fulfillment of biblical prophecy through the gathering of the exiles. God bless you from Jerusalem.
Those who dreamed about the Jewish state, those who survived the Holocaust and found in Israel the anchor, the security, those who wrought the historical miracle and against all odds established a state, those who stepped into the breach and defended the young Jewish state, so many of them paid with their lives, those who arrived in the homeland to their new home, those who propelled Israel forward step after step, those who stand at the technological vanguard, and the loyal partners who ensure the continuation of the Zionist enterprise. All those are Karen Hayesod, because Karen Hayesod is Eretz Israel. The return of an ancient people to their biblical homeland, a nation whose values inspired mankind, only to endure centuries of suffering. The ultimate tale of redemption from the ashes of destruction. This remarkable story is the story of the State of Israel. It is also the story of Karen Hayesod. Thanks to the dedication of Karen Hayesod supporters, huge resources were available to make the State of Israel a reality. Founded in 1920, Karen Hayesod galvanized Jewish donors across the world in a unified effort to develop the infrastructure of the first sovereign Jewish state in 2,000 years.
אנו מכריזים בזאת על הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל. היא מדינת ישראל.
By the time the State of Israel was born in 1948, Karen Hayesod's funds had been the driving force behind the establishment of over 900 communities in the Jewish homeland. Its donors helped found many of the iconic institutions we know today, including the Hebrew University and Israel's Philharmonic Orchestra, ensuring that as Zechariah envisioned, Jerusalem's streets would once more be filled with boys and girls at play. Karen Hayesod's supporters also helped rescue tens of thousands of desperate Jews fleeing a burning Europe, bringing them to the sanctuary of the land of Israel. Ezekiel's prophecy of bringing dry bones to life had been fulfilled. Throughout the decades, Karen Hayesod has been there for Jewish people coming home. In the 1950s, by financing the creation of still vibrant cities, Eilat and Sderot, bringing to life Ben-Gurion's vision of making the Negev desert bloom. In the 1960s and 70s, raising funds and providing a lifeline for the country's development during wartime. And at the close of the century, helping to bring immigrants from the four corners of the earth in a modern-day exodus, rescuing tens of thousands of Jews from Ethiopia and 1 million Jews from the former Soviet Union, delivering them from danger and distress. To this day, Karen Hayesod's activists continue their mission of aliyah and absorption. Last year, more than 31,000 Jews were helped to make their lives in the land of their ancestors. Karen Hayesod remains at the heart of Israel's development, as Israel's barren land has been transformed into a hub of creativity, innovation, and success. Karen Hayesod's supporters have been there every step of the way. They have empowered 2,000 pioneering young Israelis to reinvigorate 65 distressed communities. All of this has been achieved through Karen Hayesod's ongoing efforts to build unbreakable bonds with Israel among Jews in the diaspora, Christians, and people of faith from across the world. In the book of Jeremiah, the Lord says, "There is a hope for your future. Your children will return to their borders." Every day, Karen Hayesod supporters are making this vision a reality. Thanks to Karen Hayesod, the State of Israel continues to grow from strength to strength.
Come join Keren HaYesod in fulfilling biblical prophecy. Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
Over decades, American administrations and Israeli governments have disagreed about settlements, but we agreed that the Security Council was not the place to resolve this issue. We knew that going there would make negotiations harder and drive peace further away. And as I told John Kerry on Thursday, friends don't take friends to the Security Council. I'm encouraged by the statements of our friends in the United States, Republicans and Democrats alike. They understand how reckless and destructive this UN resolution was. They understand that the Western Wall isn't occupied territory. I look forward to working with those friends and with the new administration when it takes office next month. And I take this opportunity to wish Israel's Christian citizens and our Christian friends around the world a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Lift up your eyes and look around. All your children gather and come to you. Biblical prophecy is unfolding right before your very eyes. The people of Israel are returning to the Promised Land after 2,000 years of exile. But millions of Jews are still waiting to come home. Violent anti-Semitism threatens many of the Jews. We must rescue them before our window of opportunity slams shut. Bless Israel by supporting Keren HaYesod UIA, the official fundraising arm of the Jewish state. Together, we can help fulfill the prophecies of the Bible.
Let us bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, visit our website kh-uia.org.il.
Please stay tuned for the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
We have heard this sound and know the fear that follows. We have seen the struggle of putting food on the table. We have seen the pain of families separated and the desire to come home. We have heard the painful stories of those who are starting over. We have seen the lives and the struggles of Holocaust survivors. Because of you, 95 people in 6 bomb shelters can have a safe haven for when terror attacks strike communities in vulnerable areas. Because of you, 970 people celebrated the Passover with dignity and joy. Because of you, after years of waiting and praying, nearly 2,000 brothers, sisters, sons, and daughters from 11 nations came home to Israel through the work of ICEJ Aliyah. Because of you, 192 new immigrants were given the training, assistance, and mentorship needed to not only survive in their new home, but to succeed. Because of you, we can take care of 70 Holocaust survivors. Their physical, emotional, and social needs are met at the Haifa Home for Holocaust Survivors. Israel is not just an ancient place you read about in your Bible. It is made up of people. And it's because of you that we are able to show the love of God to them in a tangible way.
אני עמדתי ליד אמא שלי, מחזיק את היד. אמא התכופפה עליי, לי ביידיש קוראים מוטל. היא אומרת לי, מוטל, תנסה לברוח, שתוכל לספר מה היה פה. לא יודע מה זה להגיד אמא מגיל 9. וגם לא קיבלתי חיבוק של אמא שכל ילד מקבל. אלה הרסו לנו את הילדות, עשקו את הילדות. אתם יודעים שהמלחמה לא נמשכה לא חודש, חודשיים או שנה ושנתיים, נמשכה איזה 5 שנים. וכל פעם, כל יום אתה צריך להילחם על החיים שלך.
For many Holocaust survivors in the latter part of their years, it's becoming difficult to live on their own. That's where the ICEJ Home for Holocaust Survivors comes in. The staff take care of their needs and a nurse is on call to make sure they stay healthy.
אנחנו לעת זקנה, קשה לנו לתפקד בבית. לי יש בית, יש הכל. וזה ארגון בעזרת השגרירות הנוצרית, שאני יודע שהם תומכים בנו, ותומכים יפה, ואנחנו חיים על רמה.
The survivors go on outings around Israel and enjoy a wide variety of activities. They celebrate major events they missed while struggling to survive the Holocaust. Mordecai and the other 70 Holocaust survivors at the Haifa home are cared for on a daily basis because of partners like you. We cannot maintain this home without your financial support. So go to icej.org/Haifa and partner with us today.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan Elrom.
And I'm Erin Viner, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.